Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Authorities in Gallatin County, Montana say that they're investigating a disturbing mystery this week after the death of a 35-year-old camper that is now being called a vicious homicide. The case began at around 10 a.m. on October 12th when the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office received a call from a man who said he needed help right away. The man explained that he had found the body of his friend, 35-year-old Dustin Mitchell Curson, inside of a tent on Moose Creek Road, just north of the city of Big Sky. The caller said that Dustin was dead and that he believed, based on the state of the remains, that he'd been the victim of a bear attack. When authorities arrived at the scene, including an agent from the Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife and Parks, they confirmed that Dustin had suffered a savage attack, but they did not believe it was consistent with a bear. Instead, it appeared he had sustained numerous chopping injuries, and it was instead determined that he had been murdered. At the time of this recording, few other details are available about the case. We know that Dustin was last seen on October 10th when he left his home to go camping. At the time, he was well equipped with supplies and was planning to meet up with a friend over the weekend. That friend, the same one who later called 911, told police that Dustin never showed up to the place where they were supposed to meet the following day, and that he finally found him on October 12th after extensive searching. Currently, no arrests have been made in the case, and police say they're working to uncover exactly what happened. Anyone with information about Dustin's death is encouraged to reach out to the Gallatin County Sheriff's Office.
Representatives from Tennessee's Metro Nashville Police Department say that a 29-year-old man has been arrested and is facing charges this week after he was accused of viciously attacking and killing a woman who was a complete stranger to him along a local hiking trail. The incident began at around 5:30 p.m. on October 14th when police received alarming calls from people in the city's Antioch neighborhood. Several witnesses said that they had just seen and heard what appeared to be a woman being attacked on the Mill Creek Greenway Trail. Officers rushed to the area where they discovered 34-year-old Alyssa Lockett's lying in an overgrown section of the trail. She was suffering from a single gunshot wound to the head. Emergency responders did all they could for Alyssa, though sadly she was later pronounced dead from her injuries after being taken to a nearby hospital. After further conversations with witnesses, authorities uncovered additional clues about what had happened to Alyssa. At the time she was killed, she had been exercising along the trail when a man came out from between two parked cars. He started following her at a, quote, brisk pace before screams could be heard. Alyssa was yelling that she was being attacked, and some with a better vantage point stated that they had seen an Asian male on top of her. The pair disappeared from view before gunshots rang out. Surveillance footage from the trail showed the suspect walking back to his dark gray sedan with scratches on his arms and blood on his clothing before fleeing the scene. Another witness was able to provide dash cam video from their vehicle, which had been in the parking lot at the time and had captured high-quality footage of him. When the video was seen by a homicide detective with the Metro Police, she recognized the suspect as being the twin brother of a man who had taken his own life in December of 2021. With all of this, investigators were able to identify the alleged killer as 29-year-old Paul Park. Park was arrested less than 24 hours after the murder, after surveillance was set up outside his home in the city's Brentwood neighborhood. He has now been charged with murder. While no official motive has been confirmed at this time, it has been widely reported that the fatal attack might have been an attempted sexual assault. According to local media reports, Alyssa did not know Park, and witnesses allegedly overheard her shouting during the attack that someone was trying to rape her. In the wake of the awful crime, police and some local politicians have come out saying that greater resources are needed to ensure the safety of the public in places like the Mill Creek Greenway Trail. In particular, a local councilman has called for increased patrols and license plate readers, which police have also claimed might have helped in this case. Alyssa's family, meanwhile, say that they are working to process the heartbreaking loss. They say that she was a former Vanderbilt University student who had a PhD in neuroscience and who was trying to use her education to make the world a better place. A statement released to the public reads in part, quote, Dr. Alyssa Lockett's PhD was a force to be reckoned with. Driven, successful, smart, and immensely talented. Her fearless spirit and unwavering love inspired all who had the privilege to know her. She was a friend to everyone, always offering her generosity, joy, and light to those around her. Her boundless support for her large family and numerous loved ones was evident in every aspect of her life. She always showed up for those she cared about, bringing strength and love with her wherever she went. The loss of such a vibrant, compassionate, and remarkable woman is devastating, and she will be deeply missed by her family, friends, and all those whose lives she touched.
Authorities in Galveston County, Texas say that they're investigating a chilling murder case after a man allegedly brutally attacked his own mother inside her home last week before walking into a fast food restaurant covered in blood. The whole thing began around 8 p.m. on October 9th when police in Texas City began receiving 911 calls from several people at a local Wendy's location on Palmer Highway. The callers said they had just witnessed a man walk into a restaurant covered in blood and what appeared to be serious injuries. When officers arrived at the scene, the man, later identified as 30-year-old Jonathan Taylor, was still there. He claimed that he had just been robbed and that's why he was injured and covered in blood. However, as police continued speaking with Taylor, his story began to change. Eventually, he reportedly admitted he was not the victim of a crime, but rather the perpetrator. Specifically, he allegedly confessed to attacking his 68-year-old mother, Regina McIntyre. After racing to the woman's address on the 2900 block of Tarpey Avenue, emergency responders found Regina lying on her kitchen floor. She had been savagely attacked and had suffered numerous wounds that were reportedly inflicted with a machete. She was airlifted to a hospital, though sadly was pronounced dead roughly 2 hours later. Taylor was also treated for injuries, although has since been arrested and charged with murder and resisting arrest. At the time of this recording, no information has been provided about the possible motive behind the killing. Police also haven't commented on Taylor's bizarre choice to go to Wendy's after allegedly carrying out the crime.
Authorities in Oakland County, Michigan say that 2 suspects are successfully in custody this week following a nightmarish home invasion in which they allegedly posed as utility workers in order to rob and murder a local homeowner. The disturbing incident began on the night of October 10th when the 2 suspects showed up at the home of 72-year-old Hussein Murray and his wife. The men claimed to be with the energy company DTE, though were not let inside by the elderly couple. Unfortunately, the same could not be said the following morning when the pair returned, this time with more official-looking props. In Ring doorbell footage, they can be seen wearing high-visibility vests and carrying a clipboard with phony papers to make it look like a legitimate work order. The men were even traveling in a vehicle with a DTE Energy decal on it. After explaining that they were there to investigate a gas leak, they fooled Hussein and managed to gain entry to his home. Once they did, they led him into the basement. A short time later, the 2 suspects came back upstairs alone and confronted Hussein's elderly wife. They duct-taped her hands and feet and demanded that she tell them where they kept their money and valuables. When she screamed, she was struck in the face. Thankfully, the woman managed to somehow call 911, at which point the 2 suspects fled. They fled with her phone and watch, though sadly, as she was about to learn, that wasn't all that they had taken from her. In the basement was the body of her husband. Hussein had been restrained in the same way and brutally murdered. After launching an investigation and releasing an appeal to the public for information which included a bit of the Ring surveillance footage taken of the suspects, authorities were able to track both of them down. The first man, 37-year-old Carlos Jose Hernandez, was arrested on October 12th in Caddo Parish, Louisiana. It turned out that in addition to crimes related to the home invasion, he was also wanted on armed robbery charges in Ohio. The second suspect was arrested on October 14th, though he didn't make it quite as far. So far, his name has not been released, though we know he was taken into custody in Plymouth County. At the time of this recording, only charges against Hernandez have been announced. He is now facing 1 count of felony murder, as well as 2 counts of unlawful imprisonment. As for how and why Hussein and his wife were targeted, police say that they are still investigating, though it's possible the suspects knew about their business. Hussein owned a Detroit-area jewelry and pawn shop, and it could be the case that the suspects believe they kept cash and valuables inside their residence. However, this has yet to be confirmed. The situation is still developing.
Federal authorities in Vermont say that a 41-year-old Chinese woman is facing a lengthy prison sentence as well as a hefty fine this week after she pleaded guilty to trying to smuggle more than 24 of a protected species of turtle across the U.S.-Canada border in quite the ridiculous fashion. According to court documents, the whole thing started sometime on the morning of June 28, 2024, when the woman in question, 41-year-old Wan Ying, was caught red-handed as she carried out the plot. After renting an Airbnb near the town of Canaan, Vermont, she reportedly blew up an inflatable boat on the shore of Lake Wallace, which she then loaded up with 29 eastern box turtles. She apparently planned to meet up and hand off the reptiles to her husband and one other person, who had started paddling out into the middle of the lake from the Canadian side in Quebec. Ng was arrested by Border Patrol agents, who found the turtles individually wrapped in socks. Her husband and the other alleged accomplice, meanwhile, were captured by officers with the RCMP. Based on communications between Ng and her husband, which were found on her phone, authorities established that she was planning to smuggle the protected turtles back into Canada, where she was living at the time, before taking them back to her native Hong Kong. Once there, she was hoping to sell them on the lucrative Chinese black market, where they normally sell for around $1,000 each. Ng pleaded guilty to a smuggling charge on October 11th and is now awaiting sentencing. According to reports, she's looking at a maximum of up to 10 years in prison, as well as a fine of up to $250,000.
An Arkansas father has been arrested and is facing first-degree murder charges after he allegedly shot and killed a man who had previously been accused of stalking and sexually assaulting his minor teenage daughter. The situation began sometime on the night of October 8th, when the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office received a call from 36-year-old Aaron Spencer. Aaron stated that his 14-year-old daughter had gone missing from her bedroom and that he and his wife had no idea where she was. Deputies were dispatched to the scene, but before they could arrive, they received a second 911 call. This time, the report was about a shooting. After arriving, officers were told by Aaron that he had found his daughter in a truck with a 67-year-old man named Michael Fosler. A confrontation between them had happened, during which Fosler was fatally shot. While many of the details of that incident remain unclear at the time of this recording, what we do know is that Aaron Spencer was arrested over the killing. He has since been charged with first-degree murder in connection with Michael Fosler's death. However, as you may have guessed, there's a lot more to this story. Context which Aaron and his family claim explain why he did what he did. That context has to do with extremely disturbing allegations against Fosler. According to reports, back in the summer, Fosler was arrested for stalking and raping Aaron's 14-year-old daughter. He was charged with a number of serious felonies in connection with that case. However, he was apparently released after posting $50,000 bond. In interviews with local media, Aaron's wife Heather told reporters that Fosler had a no-contact order with their daughter and that they had no idea he had been communicating with her again ahead of the October 8th incident. Since she was the only witness to what had happened between them, they feared that when she disappeared that night, Fosler intended to kill her. Heather went on to blast the police handling of the situation, accusing them of doing little to protect their daughter or their family. She said in part, quote, "Some things we will never know, but we know that the police department afforded this predator privacy they did not give our family, including posting our home address. I'm deeply offended by the way this was handled by the county sheriff's office." Heather also suggested that authorities may have been trying to help Fosler to keep the situation quiet, saying, quote, "We have gotten a clear picture of a predator who continuously worked with children and preyed on young girls. This man was a chief of police in Indiana and resource officer, giving us a better idea of why the Lonoke County courts have been protecting him and going after my husband. Currently, police say that they are still piecing together the timeline of exactly what happened in the shooting, though some legal experts have weighed in suggesting that Aaron and his defense team will likely be able to make a strong case towards having the charges against him either reduced or dismissed. However, at this time, the situation is ongoing."
Authority in Holmes County, Mississippi say that they're investigating the aftermath of a senseless act of violence this week after a deadly shooting broke out at what was supposed to be a party celebrating a high school football game. The whole thing reportedly began on the night of October 18th when some students from Holmes County Central High School gathered to celebrate their win over a rival school at that evening's homecoming game. The event was held on a trail ride on a property along Highway 17 North, just a few miles outside the city of Lexington. Between 200 and 300 students and other community members attended the celebration, which according to some local reports had been properly planned and was staffed with security. For the first couple of hours, things were apparently going fine. However, at around 12:30 a.m., roughly 30 minutes before everything was scheduled to wrap up, gunshots rang out. While the exact details of what happened have not been confirmed at this time, and police are still actively investigating, according to witnesses who were there, things took a tragic turn when two young men got into an altercation. One or both of them pulled out weapons, and a barrage of shots were fired. Immediately, everyone tried to scramble to safety, but sadly not everyone made it. 3 people were later pronounced dead, while a further 8 were taken to hospitals to be treated for injuries including bullet wounds. The deceased victims have since been identified as 2 men and 1 woman, 25-year-old Martell Gibson, 19-year-old John Jenkins, and 19-year-old Chandra Chestnut. Currently, police say they are searching for suspects, but so far no arrests have been made. The situation is still developing.
Authorities in Bernalillo County, New Mexico say that a 24-year-old man is facing a number of charges this week after he allegedly brutally murdered his whole family and was caught while in the middle of trying to clean up the crime scene. The case began shortly before 2:15 p.m. on October 13th when the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call from a landlord in the village of Tijeras. The man stated that he was concerned about a family who was renting a house next to him on Young Road. He explained that he heard what he believed were gunshots coming from the property. When he had texted to see if they were okay, he received no answer. He had even gone outside and honked the horn of his vehicle to see if he could get their attention, but he still wasn't able to speak with anyone. That changed when officers arrived at the scene and they were greeted by one of the residents at the house, 24-year-old Adelaide Mestre. Mestre was covered in blood and was carrying a gun, as well as a second loaded magazine. Mestre was detained without any violence, though things quickly became even more disturbing. While talking with deputies, the 24-year-old said something along the lines of, quote, "I killed them and I was going to bury them." When officers entered the house, they found blood all over the place, as well as trails that appeared to be drag marks. It looked like someone had been in the middle of mopping the scene up. However, a bloody knife and meat tenderizer were still on the floor. Authorities would make the most awful discovery of all when they investigated a ravine about 50 yards from the house. Here, they found the lifeless bodies of 3 people who had been stacked on top of each other. They were later identified as Mestre's 46-year-old father, Raimundo, his 51-year-old mother, Bertha, and his 17-year-old sister, Brielle. All 3 had died from gunshot wounds and also appeared to have been stabbed. According to police, Mestre also shot the family dog. The animal was still alive when they arrived there, but had to be euthanized due to its injuries. After being taken to the sheriff's office for questioning, Mestre reportedly admitted to killing his father in the living room that day and his mother while she walked down the stairs. However, he claimed he didn't know about his younger sister, and also proceeded to make a number of bizarre statements, telling investigators about, quote, seismic waves, how he had shot at cell towers, and how there was thermal imaging on his house. He claimed that the family dog was, quote, ravenous. Some time after giving this statement, Mestre was left alone in an interview room where he allegedly tried to escape. He punched and kicked through the room's walls before making a run for it, though was chased down and put in a more secure location. At the time of this recording, the 24-year-old is facing 3 counts of open murder, tampering with evidence, extreme cruelty to animals, and criminal damage to property over $1,000. As for the motive behind the disturbing crime, that remains a mystery. All we know so far is that Mestre had been admitted to a behavioral health facility sometime earlier this year. The situation is still under investigation. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, Thanks so much, everyone, and take care.